And I'm one of the assistant principals at Prior-Perscliffe College. This presentation gives some advice and guidance to students who are thinking about making an application for Oxford or Cambridge universities. So first of all, just to look a little bit at the myths surrounding going to study at Oxford or Cambridge. We find sometimes that students are a little bit worried about making an application to Oxford or Cambridge universities because they're a long way away. They have reputations that are nationally and internationally renowned, but they also have a lot of misconceptions about what it would be like to actually go and study at both of these universities. We've got some ideas on the screen here that show you some of the things that students will typically say to us. So they're very concerned about the fact that there's a lot of people there from private schools, that a lot of the people there are posh, that if you automatically will get a place if you have 3 A's in your A levels, and that it's a little bit like Hogwarts in terms of the fact that the teachers swan around in robes and they're all quite old. But actually what you'll find is that the reality is very different to that. So both universities have worked really hard to improve the number of state school applications and also the number of successful applications that students make. So last year, 62.3% of students who accepted a place at Oxford University were from state schools. At Cambridge, it was 52%. Both universities make a real effort to take students from a wide variety of backgrounds and cultures as well. And the northeast of England is actively engaged in recruitment activities with Oxford and Cambridge. And actually, when you look at the success rate for students getting in from the northeast of England, for Cambridge, we have the highest success rate. That comes with a small caveat in the fact that we have quite a low number of applications, but of the applications, we convert very well into people actually getting a place at university. One of the things that isn't automatically known about Oxford and Cambridge either is the generous financial support that they have available. The individual colleges, which is where you would live and study for part of the time, have their own funding streams, and they ensure that no student has to leave the university due to a lack of financial support. So this is really useful. Other things to be aware of are the food that's served within the colleges, so within the canteens themselves, is often very heavily subsidised, so it's very cheap to actually eat within college itself. In terms of the university's reputation, you will be, I'm sure, aware of both universities having a high academic reputation, both nationally but also internationally. Probably the most recent thing that you've seen is the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine developed for COVID-19, which was developed at the university itself as one of their vaccine research teams. So they couldn't be more current if they tried. Both universities are intensively invested in research, and what this means is that their teaching is also very much research-led. What does that mean in practice? Well, it means that you will be taught your subject by people who are maybe national or global leaders in their field. They're doing the most up-to-date research, which they want to obviously educate you about. One of the other surprising things about Oxford and Cambridge, though, is the fact that the choices that are available are much narrower than what you would get at a traditional Russell Group university like Newcastle or Leeds. For example, you aren't able to do vocational courses really other than medicine at both universities. They don't offer dentistry, they don't offer nursing, they don't offer teaching as a degree. You can do a postgraduate qualification there, but that's slightly different. So it's important to research your course choice first of all before you actually look at going down the line of preparing for an Oxbridge application. We wouldn't want you to waste time and effort onto something to find that you weren't able to apply there because they didn't offer the course. The typical offers that they make can range from 3 A's to 2 A stars and an A. So there is obviously high academic challenge there, but it would be expected that students of that academic calibre would be applying to Oxford and Cambridge anyway. So what can you do to get ready to make a successful Oxford or Cambridge application? Well, at present time, for students in year 10 and 11, really the important thing to do is to focus on doing as well as you possibly can in your GCSEs. I know that this is really difficult given the time that we're in, but it's still important to try and get the best possible grades. The universities and college as well will have to take into account the situations in which you've achieved these qualifications, but you will be in the same boat as everybody else in your year group cohort. So try not to worry too much about that, just try and aim to do as well as you possibly can. The other thing that's really important when you're looking at your GCSE qualifications is that quality of grade really is more important than quantity. Oxford and Cambridge would rather see students with maybe 8 to 10 GCSEs that are of a high standard 8s and 9s rather than doing 14, which meant you dilute the quality of the grades, so you might end up with some 6s and 7s in there. So don't feel pressured at school to do extra qualifications if you think that you're not going to be able to perform at that top level. So when you get to the point where you're sort of finishing your GCSEs and you find you've got a little bit more free time on your hand, you can start to really explore the subjects that you love. For some of you, you might have already decided which subject that you want to study at university, which is fantastic. But for those of you who haven't, please don't panic, you've got time yet. But what you need to do is to start exploring your interests beyond the curriculum. And this is what we describe as supercurricular. So you will have heard of the term extracurricular before, and that really applies to doing things that are outside of your academic studies. So things like taking part in sport, music, Duke of Edinburgh, dancing, gymnastics, and other hobbies. Whereas supercurricular is really a specific focus on activities that are related to your subject. So let's say, for example, you're interested in studying archaeology at university. You might go and visit some museums in the local area that would allow you to gain insight into archaeology. So something like the Dig at York is a really good example of that, and even the Jorvik Viking Museum as well. You might also look into local digs that could be happening in this area. So I know in past years we have actually had digs taking place in East Cleveland where teams of archaeologists have been actually excavating farmers' fields looking for various things. So make it your business to find out if there's something going on in the local area that's relevant to the subject that you're interested in studying at university. If you struggle to find that, don't panic. You can have a look online. Obviously, there's lots of resources on there, and you can undertake some background reading. So if you're really interested in studying philosophy at university, you can start looking at a different range of philosophers and reading their different interpretations on things. If you have interest in sciences, it could be reading New Scientist each week. It could be to start reading things like popular science books. Bad Pharma is a good example. Bad Science by Ben Goldacre are really good insights into the pharmaceutical and scientific industries. You can also carry out your own independent research. There's nothing to stop you doing that as well. Anything that helps you to develop a greater understanding of the subject that you're interested in and to demonstrate that interest will be really useful. So just taking a look at GCSE results for the moment, I'm just showing you some examples from the past 2 years of our successful Oxbridge applicants. Most applicants, so this is people who will just actually apply to the universities, will have on average somewhere between 6 to 7 grade 9s at GCSE. Successful applicants may have more, but equally they may have less. So in 2020, the 2 students that we had accepted to Oxbridge universities, as you can see, had very high GCSE scores. This year, there's been a bit more of a mixture. We've had really good success this year. We've got 2 students with offers for Oxford and 2 for Cambridge. And we're covering subjects such as medicine, computer science, and French and Italian as well. The good news is that GCSE results are contextualised according to your school. So if you went to a school where GCSE performance had been below the national average, then that will be marked up during the application process by the individual universities. So once those GCSEs are over and done with and out of the way, you can start on, again, developing your experience of the subject beyond the curriculum. So you might undertake visits a little bit further afield. You might get involved in clubs, you might do additional reading, but it's also a really good opportunity to take up work experience as well, particularly if you're looking at things like medicine, vet, or even law at university. To get some work experience will give you a real insight into what it's like to actually work in those fields. Some students even like to go to the open days before they start college to have a look at the universities, and that can act as a real inspiration. Although I mentioned Oxford and Cambridge being a little bit like Hogwarts before, actually it does really appeal. When you go down to visit both of those universities, the sense of history, the sense of academic rigour, the fantastic architecture that you'll see at both universities is really inspirational. And I know that students in the past that we've taken on the Year 10 visit down to Oxford, that's really served as a driving force to get them to apply for the universities. So if you're able to do that in the summer, I would wholeheartedly recommend that. Do a little road trip and visit them both. So if you're not able to go and visit the universities, but you want to sort of broaden your understanding of subjects, other things that you can do within the North East are to look at different museums, different sites of interest. And this is just a suggestion of a few different ideas for you. It isn't exhausted. I haven't covered every subject. It wouldn't be possible to do that, but it does give you some starting points and the kind of things that you can actually be looking for to do in your local area. So when you come to college, we obviously want to do our best to support you to be able to be in the best possible position to make an application to Oxford and Cambridge. So what we'll do is we'll try and allocate you to a tutor who is experienced in dealing with Oxbridge applications. We've got a number of those tutors in the college. In the first term, there will be an introduction to Oxbridge talk given by Diane, our careers advisor, and then we will invite you to take part in the Oxbridge conference, which is run probably the only time that Oxford and Cambridge work together in March, and that actually takes place at St James's Park in Newcastle, so we take a bus trip up there. This year, due to COVID, it didn't take place, and I think this academic year, I think it is going to take place online, but usually we do take a bus trip to that because it's a really useful experience. Other things that we would encourage students to do in the first year is to look at making applications for university summer schools. The Sutton Trust in particular does really good widening participation programmes for students from the North East to engage with not only Cambridge but also other Russell Group universities as well over a wide range of subjects. So I would really encourage you to have a look at applying for those. Oxford do their own summer schools called the Unique Summer Schools, so you would apply directly to them for that. And then at the end of the first year, again, all being well, we do try and run a residential trip to coincide with either the Oxford or Cambridge Open Day, and that gives you the opportunity to stay overnight in one of the colleges. When we went to Cambridge last academic year, so it would have actually been summer 2019, seems like a lifetime ago, we actually stayed at King's College, Cambridge, which is one of the most high profile colleges because that's our link college. And we stayed in their halls of residence. We ate our meal there and had breakfast there the next morning and took part in their open day activities before going off to explore the rest of the open day at the university. But it was a really positive experience and the students really enjoyed it. When we go to Oxford, we often go to Trinity College, but we have stayed at Mansfield in the past as well. So when you come to enrol at college, once you've obviously got your GCSE results in hand, you do need to think quite carefully about the subjects that you choose. The Russell Group came up a number of years ago with a group of subjects that they described as the facilitating subjects. These are seen as the subjects that are more academically rigorous. They're also subjects that develop a lot of transferable skills that will allow you to progress onto a lot of different university courses. Of all those subjects, maths is probably the best, but it is not by any means the right course for everybody. If you like maths and you are good at it, then by all means pick it. But if you've got other strengths, then you can obviously go for different subjects. But you need to look carefully at what the university courses require from you. It's important to make sure that you meet those course requirements before anything else. So for example, if you're applying for medicine, you do need to have biology and chemistry really, or chemistry and another science. If you're applying for maths, then obviously having maths and further maths, particularly for Oxford and Cambridge, is important. If you're looking at engineering, then again, maths, further maths, physics can be important. For the humanities-based subjects, again, obviously if you're applying for English, having an English A-level is really useful, but some subjects do have broader qualification requirements. So if you want to study law at university, for example, and this isn't just Oxford and Cambridge, you don't actually have to study A-level law. It can be very useful, but it's not essential. The other thing that you might consider doing whilst at college is studying a qualification called EPQ, which stands for Extended Project Qualification. And this is where you get your chance to research and write about a topic that really interests you and gain a qualification. A big part of the process is actually learning project management skills as well. So it's a really useful technique for anybody going off to university. And as I said, it's the equivalent of an AS qualification. So it doesn't do you any harm to do that. In some instances, I would say doing an EPQ is probably better than doing a fourth A level because it demonstrates a different skill set. There isn't any need to study 4 A levels going to Oxford and Cambridge unless you want to do further maths and maths, or you need to do that, in which case then 4 A levels is probably a good idea. But for the most part, doing the 3 courses is sufficient. The students that we've got have received offers this year, 3 out of the 4 of those students have only done 3 A levels and they've been made offers. So once you've done your first year at college, you've got the gap obviously between year 12 and year 13. There are things that you need to do to prepare to make your application in early September. So if you're doing the EPQ, you want to research and complete that as much as you can. Doing any additional reading can be really useful as well. That's going to help to inform your personal statement. Obviously, visiting the university open days is a must. Practicing the admissions tests, I'm going to say a little bit more about those in a moment, but you can never do enough practice for those. It's not something you can revise for, but doing the practice questions will make a really big difference. You'll then need to pull together your personal statement, which is going to be really important part of the application process, and also think about preparing for the interview. So just saying a little bit about the admissions tests, both universities do use a wide range of tests. Oxford tend to use more of their own tests, so that what you would call their own in-house tests, whereas Cambridge will use some of the standard ones that are already out there. So both universities, for example, will use BMAT for medicine and they use LNAT for law. You might also see tests like the TSA, the Thinking Skills Assessment, or HAT, the History Aptitude Test, but it's very much the student's responsibility to look on the university's websites and to find out which test they need to do, how to enrol for the test, when it's going to be done, and whether or not you need to pay for it. So that's really important. There's a lot of help online to prepare for these tests. You shouldn't really need to pay for anything because there are a lot of websites out there that would ask you to pay for resources. But if you actually go onto the official website for these tests that I've got mentioned on here, they actually have lots of practice questions on there for you to do as well. But subject teachers can help you out with that. So just some last additional resources to talk about. For those of you who maybe have found GCSEs, reasonably even sailing, that you don't feel like you've been academically maybe stretched to the max and you want to do a little bit more in your own time, then I've included some really good websites on here for you to look at. The Oxplore website is hosted by Oxford University and it's what they call the home of big questions. So they will pose questions like, should we eat meat? Is there a God? And they will look at those questions from lots of different perspectives. So from a scientific perspective, from a theological perspective, from a historical perspective, and you can click into things and read in a lot more detail. Cambridge hosts a website called HE Plus. This one's more subject and career focused, but it will give you a lot of direction to look at your subject in more detail. It will suggest reading resources, web links, and give activities as well. Access Ed has also got some resources on there. This is really good at helping you to prepare your university application. And the last one I would suggest having a look at, again, if you've got some free time on your hands, is to look at something called MOOCs, which stands for Mass Open Online Courses. So if you go onto a website called Coursera, or if you've got iTunes U, you can go into those and there are pretty much courses on any topic you would care to mention that are offered free by some of the world's leading universities. So, for example, Harvard in America, the Sorbonne in Paris, Oxford and Cambridge in the UK. And you can complete these courses for free and learn about something new. So, for example, the cancer of biology, the differences in how transgender people are treated in healthcare. You can look at conflict in war zones. You can look at an absolute wide range of courses. There's so many, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many different things there are. So do have a look at that as well, because it will really help to sort of broaden your understanding of the subject that you're interested in. So I hope that this has been useful to you. If you need to contact me at all, my email's obviously on the end of the presentation, but I would urge you to go and have a look on both university websites so that you can see in a little bit more detail what the universities are about. Thank you for your time.